welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, guys. We are excited today to have Dr. Suzanne Gilberg-Lenz. And as you know, we are at the Wise Pause event. We are learning so much. And Dr. Lenz just got off the stage, and I wanted to start this. Welcome.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me.
Skip that part.
Hello.
I wanted to kind of start where you just left off.
Yeah.
You literally just got off the stage, and someone asked you what you thought a fantastic menopause was.
Yeah.
And I thought that'd be a great way to start.
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, and I think I'll try to recreate part of what I said, but the main message for a fantastic menopause is to just like relocate yourself. I think to me, my life's work, when I'm starting to really realize, especially because I'm talking about it so much, you know, and with my book coming out and everything, I'm like just in it. That is what it's all about, is like rediscovering yourself. A great menopause is actually coming back to yourself and liking what you find. You know what I mean? And if you don't like some of what you find, figuring out some ways that you can change that, you know, flipping the script in some ways. I mean, I think a podcast like this and an event like this really offers so many resources to people, but it also it creates community for us, which is that's where my book came from, actually, was because I started doing these menopause boot camps, and I thought people were coming for the information, and I think they were, but what they were leaving with was community and not feeling isolated and alone. And I think this idea of being ourselves, us being not only enough but more than enough, and kind of awesome, and like being excited about it, and not accepting the narrative that this is a terrible time. Like that is just, I'm just over it. It's just ridiculous. And we can play a role by just refusing to accept it. It's just, you know, at a certain point it's on us, because that narrative is not going away apparently.
Yeah. And we just have to all come together and say, yeah, that's not the narrative for us.
That's you want to do that, that's fine, because we're over here and we're actually not doing that.
Yes.
We're not decrepitude. We're not, decrepit.
Right.
What are the words I use? We're not decrepit. We're not invisible. We're not worthless.
Right.
Like what? Come on.
Yeah. You're not putting us out to pasture anymore.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. And you were talking about your book.
Yeah.
Which is the Menopause Bootcamp.
The Menopause Bootcamp.
Yes. Yes.
That's the thing.
And it covers just so much in the book.
Yeah.
And one thing that Colleen and I are so interested in is the mood, your mood.
Right, you talk about mood disorders, and you talk about mental health.
Yes.
I did not attribute that to, because so many,
I think
what
that's
we
a
went
huge
through.
issue.
And we didn't know what was happening to us.
I think actually, and I have heard that story over and over and over, that people come into that transition having been, I don't want to say misdiagnosed, because I think mood disorders are a very important part of perimenopause and menopause, and I do want to talk about that, and that's why we spend a significant amount of time in the book talking about it. But I also have seen over and over and over people getting misdiagnosed, both with like rheumatologic disorders, fibromyalgia, autoimmune stuff, and just straight up anxiety and depression, when in fact it was a part of a constellation of symptoms that were related to perimenopause and menopause. And when people finally get to that point, if they do, they're really understandably upset, because that context was not appreciated or honored. And I think that's a huge failing in the system and in the culture. And another reason why this podcast is so important, I think the work that all of us are doing in the community is so important, because the education piece of understanding, like look, I'm trying to reach people 10, 15 years younger than me. I want people to understand what is coming next, so that they're not sidelined, they're not afraid, and they're not getting wrong information. We know that people who have had a mood disorder at any significant point in their life, whether they have a lifelong history of depression, or I think postpartum mood disorders are a big sort of precursor to peripartum or to perimenopausal mood disorders. People need to know, like, hey, this could be coming. The other thing that happens, and I experienced this, was while you're still cycling, you start to get this like crazy PMS, like anxiety, panic. I never really had PMS when I was younger. I mean, I had panic attacks. Okay, I'm a surgeon. Like, it's very hard to scare me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't having them in the OR, thank God. But I definitely was having anxiety and panic attacks, and it took me, and I'm an expert. And it took me a while to figure out, like, oh, wait, this is where I am in the cycle. This is related. This is my cycle. So, you know, when I have people coming into me on like many, many, many mood meds, maybe they need to be on those mood meds, but they also need to hear that this story is a little bit more than that, you know? And I think that even just hearing that this is part of the transition relieves people of a burden too, because I think they feel like they did something wrong. It kind of contributes to the story of being broken and hopeless, and like they're heading towards something bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think it was just amazing that, you know, we didn't know about these things, and we were going through these, and we just had no idea what was happening, and we didn't attribute it at all to menopause. We just thought hot flashes. I think that was like the only thing I heard about it. You'd stop having your period and you would have hot flashes, and that is it. So that is really amazing with the mood.
And there's a hormonal basis for a lot of people. So a lot of times I'll see it even in someone's, you know, like in their 40s, I see it a lot. And I mean, I recognize it now, and I'm like, okay, so your period started this day. So is around day 10, you start getting really irritable or really down. And there's physical changes too, like energy changes. And it's very much linked to, people are very attached to the estrogen story. And yes, estrogen does decline, but so does progesterone. And so when that balance that we're used to during our menstrual life shifts, we feel different. And so looking at that second half of the cycle for people who are still cycling can be very, very helpful. And there's a lot of things you can do, whether it's actually giving back progesterone. I have some herbal remedies that I like to use, and just awareness. For some of my patients, I tell them like, hey, if you're tracking your cycles and you're noticing this, and just you knowing, because you're relocating the power within yourself. I am understanding this about my cycle. I know that I need to take more rest. I know that I need to take a beat before I, you know, scream at you. You know, right? Or just a lot of my patients tell me, oh, no, I don't need to take anything. Now I know this is going on. That's cool.
Yes.
I'll come back when and if I need more.
Yes.
I mean, that, just having the information, because when you feel like out of control in your own body, that's scary.
It is scary. It's frightening, and you think, like you said, that there is something terribly wrong with you.
Yeah, like you're going crazy.
But
you think you're going crazy.
Something has happened to me, and then you're scared to talk to someone about it. You're embarrassed to talk to someone about it. And that is so important, to be able to feel comfortable. Which you also talk about is to feel comfortable with your doctor.
Yes.
As if you were calling your girlfriend and saying, hey, this is happening to me. Is this happening to you? But you know, I don't know, I always felt that way, and I feel like this is a gift with age too. The older I get, the more comfortable I am to talk to my doctor.
That's amazing.
That's
wonderful.
But the problem that we see a lot of times is the doctors simply aren't educated in
No, they're
the way
not.
that they should be.
They're not.
To answer your questions.
They're not.
So women are slowly, you know, we have this perfect storm. We have family, you know, you might be taking care of elderly parents, your teenagers are getting older, you might be going through empty nest, you might be changing in your marriage, your career. So you're attributing all of these things to the mental health aspect when it can be exacerbated or created from
100%
the hormones.
Because all these things are real, and I tell people all the time, look, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't tell you exactly what it is. I can tell you these things are all contributing. However, there is definitely a component that's inside the house. You know, it's coming from inside the house. Like, that's, if nothing else, it's making it harder to handle these things. And I think just naming it is really important, you know, because that loneliness, that isolation is, it's literally the worst thing you could do about anything. You know, the isolation is never the answer for anybody. It really isn't. And that's a whole thing too, like shame.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And so many women just simply don't know where to go or what to do. And so something like your book, Menopause Bootcamp, that's coming out, is a great resource.
It is, and I talk a lot about like how to advocate for yourself, what kind of questions to ask yourself before you go to the doctor. I mean, definitely you want to be able to have a conversation with your physician, but you got to ask yourself too, what are your priorities? Like, this is not about their priorities. This is not about my priorities. It's about your priorities. Because again, this is not a disease. So what are the things that are affecting you? What are you hoping for in your life right now? And then finding somebody to partner with. I mean, that's like the magical thing, and it's awesome that you have that person. A lot of us that don't have that
Right.
person. A lot of us have actually a doctor that does really care and has, needs to see 40 people today. And so they're not asking the question because they don't have the time to address the answer. And, I don't want to, my colleagues are really struggling themselves with mental health issues and distress and burnout and not having the tools or the time to care for our patients the way we feel like you deserve. But we're going to have to all take some accountability and responsibility here. And if your doctor, and if you have like insurance that, doesn't allow you to have a longer term conversation, then you do have to have these other resources. And that's why the conversation that's happening, I think, online is so important. And that's why I wrote the book, because I can't even have that conversation with my patients in the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just have to go.
You've
got a lot of with companies that I don't know own or tell you what you have to do.
No, we own our practice, but but I can only look. I can't take 3 hours with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like what I really want to do.
Yeah.
So now you have 300 pages.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Yes,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
You talk about the feeling side of menopause, and one of the things that you talk about is your energy output and input,
Yeah.
and how you really don't focus on that, but it's a balancing act. Can
Yes.
you talk about that?
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if you were upstairs when I did the demonstration with them
We were
with the
downstairs.
breath work.
Mhm.
But I one of the things that I actually think, we see all the time, like, what are the 5 things you can do? And I said, you know what? I would like you guys to stop doing things, actually. I would like I'm going to ask you to stop. And I'm going to ask you to take some time. Because and specifically the way we are acculturated is to constantly be giving. And look what I do for a living, for God's sake. I mean, to me, it energizes me in many ways. But like, I literally, my whole focus has been outside of myself for my entire life. Okay, I'm certainly not alone in that. And you cannot, look, your phone, this computer is going to die if you do not recharge it.
Yes.
Like, your podcast's done.
Yeah.
Everything in here
Yeah,
has a
you have
battery.
charge,
It's plugged into the
yes.
wall, and we're not doing it for ourselves. So we have to stop. My big thing right now is stopping, because I need to do that for myself too. Usually what I talk about with people is what I need to do for myself. I don't know, it's working out pretty well.
Because we're all close in the age, and we're all kind of going through similar experiences, so it's relatable.
Yeah. So I did a breathing technique with the group upstairs.
You actually, it was box breathing.
I did the box breathing, which is, everybody has a different version of sort of it comes from pranayama, which is part of Ayurveda, which is where my training initiated. And it's just a very simple breathing technique to literally stop the moment you're in, and you are actually giving yourself something. You are giving yourself time, space, and oxygen. So what you do is you breathe in for a certain count. I usually start with 4. You hold it for 4. You exhale for 4. You hold it for 4. And you try to repeat that as many times as you can, okay? I mean, even if you do it 3 times, it will have a significant benefit. And then you can try to start holding your breath for longer. And what you're doing is bringing your blood pressure down, you're bringing your heart rate down, your oxygen consumption gets more effective. It is giving you time, space, and the gift of oxygen. Like that, I actually think that recharge, and that is literal input, so that you have the energy to output whatever it is that you think you need or want to do.
That kind of associates you talk about re-examining your relationship with time, because I don't think any of us think about a relationship with time, and if we did, it probably would be a little overwhelming to think about. Can you talk about that?
Well, I suffer from the same thing, which is that I'm not even being present, right? Because I'm thinking about the 50 things that are on my to-do list that I need to get done, and do I have the time to do it or not, So I think we do a lot of dissociating, and I think that a lot of times does define our relationship with time, where we're not actually in the time that we're in, which is the only time that we have. I mean, this is where I get kind of philosophical and heady. But the reality is that actually what that is just, again, locating yourself within yourself. You're being in your existence in your body. I mean, this may seem like a weird analogy, but I had this really interesting experience maybe 2 weeks ago, where my trainer was out of town, and he had given me like a workout that I could do at home. Now my partner, my boyfriend, is a 35-year fitness pro, right? He's a trainer. He's not my trainer, because we don't mix.
And that's
business
why
and pleasure.
that's why
which
you're
is
still-
why we're still together.
Yes.
Right. Right. First date, he was like, I'm not the food police. Turns out that's bullshit. He is totally. but anyways, it took 7 years. but it's a good police. Anyways, so I'm doing this lunge. Okay, you know where you like a walking lunge.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Oh.
So I'm barreling through it. I'm doing it down the hall. He's like in the other room, you know, training a client on Zoom, and he comes in and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I hate this lunge thing. And he said, do you understand it's a single leg squat is what you're doing? And I was like, what? The point of this story is that I was so focused on just getting it done to get to the next thing that I didn't even think about what I'm doing a workout for me, for my body. And I'm not even thinking about what that workout is, why I'm doing it. It completely changed my relationship with the workout, with that moment, with my body, which is why he's such an amazing trainer. No, seriously, because it's all about like, you are in this body, be in your body. That's a lot of, I think, our problem with time too. We're out there.
Yes.
We're not here.
Yes, like you said, just thinking about everything else that you have to get done. And you know, it's so bad. I find myself doing that so much. Like even if I'm going to do something, going to see a play, something I really enjoy, I wonder how long it's going to take us to get back home. Is traffic going to be bad getting back home? I'm like, gosh, just sit here. You're at a great play right now. So that is such an important thing, an important aspect.
I mean, I think we have to give ourselves a break because it's just what we're doing. But I think if we can sort of be in that moment and like return to where we are, which is basically what meditation is, then that's okay too. Like we've got to give ourselves some grace, you know.
Yeah.
And these are lessons that I would hate for people to have to wait to get to 56 to learn. So I hope some younger folks
Well, that's
hear
where
that.
the podcast that they're learning it earlier.
Yes.
You had talked about some herbal remedies
Yes.
upstairs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of botanicals and herbs for a million different reasons. And the one thing I do want to say is, you know, it's not just like all herbs are great or nature is better. Like you got to be really careful. There's a lot of poison out there. There's a lot of companies that are not doing good, that are not being honest. And it's super important to work with somebody who really is trained and can help you understand what herbs are safe for you, given your circumstances, your medical history, any other meds you're on, and then also point you in the direction of companies that have high integrity, because there are a lot of great companies out there and there are a lot of really shoddy ones. They are regulated in a very different way than the FDA regulates. And I'm, you know, look, the FDA is what we have. I'm on the record for saying like I have some big issues with the FDA, but the FDA is more rigorous in its assessment, sometimes overly rigorous. In a very misogynist way. But that's another podcast. That's another podcast. Okay, so having said that, and that's an important disclaimer because I don't want people just to like go on Amazon and be like beep beep boop, and now they're you know, they have liver toxicity. Like no, I don't. That's not what I'm aiming for. So I think having talked about liver toxicity, I think black cohosh actually, specifically Remifemin, is fantastic. It has gotten a bad name, and I think that is sad because the Germans are really good at working with herbs, and they have definitely studied and shown that this herb can be very helpful for hot flashes specifically. I love pycnogenol. That is French marine pine bark. Also really can be nice for hot flashes and for overall just sort of down-regulating the stress response that people get. Relazin, which is actually from bee pollen. Some of the isoflavones that are, people get really freaked out about soy, but the reality is that there are some good benefits there for some people. I mean, these are some of the top ones for the sort of the big picture items. You know, there's a lot of other stuff. I love the, what we call adaptogens, ashwagandha, rhodiola. I think this is where you start getting into the deeper dive, and I'm not a humongous fan of cherry picking because like, for instance, with ashwagandha, this is an Ayurvedic herb. Ayurveda doesn't use herbs the way we do in Western medicine. It's a part of a protocol that is a more of a lifestyle, seasonal approach. And so I want to be careful to be respectful of those paradigms and those more holistic approaches. And I think working with a really educated practitioner can be helpful in that way and benefit people in making those kinds of choices. But I do discuss pretty in depth some of my top choices and why I like those and what the research is and is not. in the book, and I think it's a helpful guide for people.
No, it definitely was.
Yeah.
Bridget and I have both taken a look at it, and the beginning of the book, you explain what menopause is
Right.
and your hormones. So it's definitely a full 360 of options for
Good.
women,
I'm
which
glad.
is
I'm
what
glad
we
you
want.
felt. I'm glad you felt that way. I mean, that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to do.
Yes.
And that's what women want options. We had so many questions from our listeners that are personal for each person, individualized.
Yeah.
And so we can't just give a blanket statement.
No.
When
Nor
women-
can I.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we highly suggest, if you don't feel like your doctor is answering your questions, find another doctor.
Yeah.
And I think as we get older, we're a little more confident in that.
Yeah.
Before, we almost didn't want to hurt their feelings.
Right.
They didn't know.
Right.
And now we're like, okay, I respect that, but I'm going to look a little further because it's my health and it's my body.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a very hard thing to do. And I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned in medicine, and I started doing this very early on actually, was just being humble about stuff. Like, I didn't know. You don't come out of your training knowing everything. My God, that's why they call it the practice of medicine. And a lot of this stuff that actually wound up in the book came to me from patients, because people came to me and said, this is going on, and I said, I don't know what to do about that. Let's check it out. I'm going to do some reading and I'll get back to you. And that is how I was introduced to integrative medicine, to be honest. I mean, like, so this is a dialogue that we're having. I routinely refer to other practitioners who know more about other areas than I do. I collaborate with people a lot, and the person I'm collaborating the most with is the patient, because the patient is the person who knows their body. They know their experience. I have the expertise. I can sort of run through the science with them. I know after 20 plus years what I've seen work repetitively with people, what I haven't seen work. But again, this is not cancer. This is not a heart attack. This is a natural state of being. Let's figure out, what is your priority right now? What's the most disruptive thing? What's your goal? And that, because that's going to keep changing probably, and we'll keep working together. I mean, it's not that complicated. What's hard is for people to dial back their own ego, I think. And also, like, look, let's be honest. I mean, if you're going to one doctor for 30 years, they may not really be that interested in this part. They're more interested in that part. That's okay. That's legit. Everybody's not good at everything.
And that's why a lot of times I wish they had, we'll go to an OBGYN, and I wish there was just a gynecologist.
Well, some of us are.
It's hard to find, because,
it's
the
harder.
OB, I understand it's a business.
Yeah.
But it'd be great if you could just have the gynecologist that isn't is running late because they're delivering a baby.
Well, that is, I think, it's interesting, because when I first started training, that was pretty classic. Like, people would retire from delivering babies at a certain point in their career and focus on gynecology. And then I think as the business of medicine changed, it became very hard to do that. But I'm seeing a shift back toward that. And I think it's just a matter of people knowing where the resources are. So, going to things like the North American Menopause Society Physician Locator can be very helpful to look at, like, who's really concentrating on this and really knowledgeable about this. And I think it's changing, but in general, we don't have enough healthcare providers in general.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of women don't even have a gynecologist.
Yeah.
Or, they have to go to a
Or they're
primary care physician.
Yeah, which is really...
Yeah.
Sorry, I made that face. I mean, because I think some of them really, look, I'm in a community here. I'm in Los Angeles. It's a big city. People have referrals. But even here, you would be shocked by the stories I hear every single day from colleagues of mine in this community that is so sophisticated and so resourced, with patients that are resourced. Like, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me that this person at UCLA said that to you? This 32-year-old, like, what in the hell? Like, what? That's just not even accurate. But then I have every day some 32-year-old, I'm sorry, 32-year-olds, who referred to me and was like, I love 32-year-olds.
I was a 32-year-old.
I was too. I did that
Yeah.
too. But I didn't. The thing is, I had more humility when I was 32. I also have a lot of patients who are coming to me saying that their primary doc is like, hey man, this is not what I do. You should go see her.
Mm-hmm.
So there is collaboration. The other thing that's been really great about COVID is telemedicine.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, there are state-by-state rules, but you can find somebody online. I still want to be able to examine you, but there's a lot that we can do on the phone, and then you can bring that back to your doc in person, or, we can figure stuff out.
Yes. I mean, that was a big thing because I think about the women in rural areas without access.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that it did bring.
Or people who don't have insurance, or people who have
Right.
shitty insurance.
Right. That won't cover what
No.
you really are needing. Yes.
Yeah.
So that is really
So
amazing.
where can people find the book? Is it everywhere out yet? or-
Well, they can pre-order it. So I don't know when you guys are publishing the podcast,
Neither
but it'll
do we.
be October 11th. It will be everywhere. It will be
Okay.
widely available in your booksellers, online for sure. All the online booksellers. I mean, obviously Amazon. Even though I just said some shit about Amazon. Thank you for selling my book. But for now, we have a pre-order link, so you can pre-order. And for people who pre-order, they are going to get some premium content as they're
Okay.
waiting for that. But it will be available everywhere October 11th, which is amazing. I'm super
That's great.
excited.
Can you share your website with
Yes.
everyone?
So I think the easiest thing to do to find me on the socials and the pre-order link is www.thedrsuzanne, thedrsuzanne.com.
Great.
Yeah.
Dr. Suzanne Gilberg-Lenz, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you so
This
much.
was amazing.
This was great.
Yeah.
This was great.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome.